un gars d'ici, être le directeur de général des Canadiens est une occasion d'une vie.
Enjoy the moment, you're in the NHL here.
Working for the Montreal Canadiens is a dream. La plus grande franchise dans la histoire du hockey.
If it was my last day on this planet, and you told me what would you like to do, we want to be in that building on a Saturday night.
What's going on, gang? Welcome. Special edition of HABS Therapy Day, guys. We're going to do a pre-game conversation, a pre-game chat. We're going to talk about Game 1, Canadiens and Capitals, of course, coming up in about a little over an hour and a half, probably closer to 2 hours, actually, by the time all the pre-game festivities get over and done with. But I thought I would give you guys an opportunity to come on in and have a chat about the game. I apologize for being a little bit late. I was busy and I was doing a bunch of things. I would invite you to have a look at the video that I put up earlier today. I was able to speak with Greg Young, who is a Washington Capitals podcaster, works for Japers Rink, which is one of the main podcasts for the Washington Capitals. And I was able to speak to him to see if we could get a little bit of a feel for what we can expect from the Capitals in this series. And I had a really good chat with him. We talked for a little over an hour, and we talked about a bunch of different things, some of which I think we can probably talk about together here tonight or this evening before the game. And he made some interesting points, and some points that I think are worth knowing and worth taking into the series against the Capitals, giving some insight as to their roster construction and what their strengths and their weaknesses are, and where they kind of stand in the grand scheme of things with their team, and all of that good stuff. So highly recommend that you check it out. It was a good time. He's very knowledgeable. Certainly knows the Washington Capitals inside and out, and offered a lot of fun and interesting insight. So I think you guys should certainly, if you have some time, have a look and see what you think. And like I said, it'll certainly. I think it's valuable to have some sense of where the other side is coming from when it comes to certainly any hockey game, but when you're playing a 7-game series, a 7-game playoff series against another team. The more knowledge you have about the other team, the better, right? You can certainly, know what you're looking for from them, and so on and so forth. So why don't we, again, I don't have a lot of structure planned for this show today. I don't plan to do a whole lot of talking, and I'm hoping that we can get some people in here to check out the show and to join us, and hopefully you guys can carry some of the conversation here with your questions and your comments, and we can do that. Maybe it's going to take us a minute, I guess, here to get the people going here, get the people on to join up and to start chatting. But I think, I think we can. Let me see if I can get some graphics going here for you guys. I'm going to change that for this. We can have a look at the Washington Capitals depth chart and see what we can expect from them, guys. So this is essentially the lineup for the Capitals, guys. I don't know if you can see all that. If you're over on TikTok, guys, feel free to join us over here on YT. We're talking about the Habs and the Capitals. We're previewing the big series starting later this evening, and hopefully you guys can join us. If you're over on YT, feel free to pop over here to. If you're on TikTok, feel free to pop over here onto YT and have a chat. You can join us over here. If you are over here on YT, then feel free to fire away with your questions. So here's the lineup. The roster essentially, or the depth chart for the Washington Capitals. So what you'll see there is a few different things. I was able to get some information from Greg when I spoke with him this morning, or this afternoon, I guess. It was right around noontime, about this roster. And some of the things that kind of stood out to me was, his comment that essentially that McMichael, Dubois, Wilson line, he expects that will be, as far as ice time is concerned, their first line. Like that line will carry the minutes for their forwards, as opposed to the Strome, Ovechkin, Beauvillier line. Beauvillier, of course, in the lineup replacing Alexi Protas, who is currently out of the lineup with an injury. He had a laceration to his foot, and so he's still trying to come back from that. Yes, it's game night. Darren, welcome. Seb, Kamla, Darren, I see there. Who else? Brandon Alexander, Peacemaker, BMER, user 1823, Vittorio. Welcome, guys. Feel free to fire away with your questions. Scott Tizard, if you guys want to join us on YT, the channel is right there. Come on over, help us get this conversation going, guys, and hopefully we'll be able to get a few more people in here, and we'll get things rolling. So one of the things I found interesting that Greg was talking about today was that, like I said, he believes that second line, or that Dubois, Wilson, McMichael line, to him will carry the ice time for the Capitals. Certainly in the absence of Alexi Protas, who is being replaced by Beauvillier in that position, right? Beauvillier, of course. Let me just get this up here. Yeah, Beauvillier, he said he expects to play in that role on that quote unquote first line with Strome and Ovechkin. We did talk about the possibility of Leonard being bumped up to that role, and he didn't seem to think that was likely. He thinks that Leonard has looked good with Mangiapane and Eller and a third role line, but he did concede that was possible. And that he could potentially make that move. Yes, RJ Calabro, welcome. It's great to see you here, RJ. RJ is pointing out that the Seattle Kraken have terminated or have ended relationship with their head coach, Dan Bylsma. That news came down about 5 or 10 minutes ago. At least I saw it 5 or 10 minutes ago. So that's interesting. Now we have coaching vacancies essentially in Philadelphia, New York Rangers, Seattle, and Anaheim. I think those are the four. What's up, RDP? Welcome to the show. We're doing a little bit of a preview here, guys. So if you have questions, feel free to fire away. Spread the word. Tell your friends. Mark Boisclair, welcome. Diane Fitt, are we taking game one? Do I think? I have no idea, Jay. I have no idea. It'll be interesting to see which team shows up, right? As I was saying this morning on with Greg Young of Japers Rink, the Canadiens have been a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde team this year, right? If we see the team that showed up after the Christmas break and after the Four Nations break, I think they stand a pretty good chance of pulling off something interesting here against the Capitals. But if we see the team that kind of struggles to get off to a good start and runs around a little bit in their own end and has a hard time defensively, I think that maybe it's going to be a little bit more difficult. So, Jay Krause, great point. If they score first, Montreal will win the game. I don't know if it's as clear cut as that, but again, I think if they come out strong, I think that they do stand a chance. I mean, Montreal's biggest issue I think this year so far has been consistency and playing a consistent game and having the confidence. Right, a young team, if they can get some confidence and can get the ball rolling a little bit early on, I think it's going to be pretty positive for the Canadiens going ahead. Right, when they play with confidence, they play well, and if they can get on that roll, then I think it's certainly a step in the right direction, and I think we can maybe see some good things for the Canadiens. I think if the Habs win, it's going with less pressure. Yeah, I agree with that. I think they probably feel to a certain extent that they're the underdog and that they, in some senses have nothing to lose. So, in that sense, that could be to their benefit if they play that way. But we'll see. I mean, I think there's still going to be some pressure there. These are young players who've never, for the most part, never been in this type of situation. And I think they expect a lot from themselves, even if, the sentiment is that they're, kind of lucky to be there. I think there is a sense, at least within their room, that, there's more to them than that, and that they really do have a chance to win this. So we'll see how it goes. I love Cole Caulfield as well, just your average dude. K-Rock says Habs in 6. Come out fast. They're younger and faster than the Caps. Yeah, I mean, speed is going to be one of the weapons that the Canadiens have an advantage over the Capitals with, right? They've got more speed. They've got a little bit more youth. I think they're going to have to deal with some of the physicality. I think they're going to have to deal with the emotions and the discipline that, you need to have in a playoff series like this. But it'll be interesting to see how that all pans out. K-Rock says Habs in 6. We'll see. Happy playoffs, says Steve. Habs lose game 1 and come back. Better game 2. It's what they do. Yeah, I maybe, Steve. I mean, to me, I think they do need to get off to a good start. I think that if they get behind the 8 ball, I think it's going to be tough for them to dig themselves out of a hole. But we'll see how we go. Thank you, MGK. Good to see it. How do I think Hudson will handle the physical game? I don't know, Mark. We'll see. Everyone said that he wasn't going to be able to play in the NHL with the physicality, and we saw how that worked out this year. RDP, Bilesma, former Sabre. Yes, absolutely. If Habs steal game 1, holy cow, Washington been waiting for this day. Yes, they've been. Washington has been, in a playoff or clinched a playoff spot for quite some time now. So they've sort of been waiting while the Canadiens kind of had to play right through to the last minute. We'll get back to the graphic there in a bit, guys. But we'll deal with your questions here. Habs need to make things as tough as possible for Charlie Lindgren. I don't think Charlie Lindgren's going to be in net tonight. I think we're going to see the return of Logan. Oh my God, I almost said Logan Hill. Logan, their goalie, the other goalie, their number 1 goalie, Logan Thompson. Jesus, yeah, I think we're going to see Logan Thompson tonight. So yeah, do I have any doubts about the Canadiens? About Hudson. I mean, I think he could have some issues with the forecheck, and if they decide to really pressure him on the forecheck, I think similar to what we saw from Quinn Hughes last year, he kind of struggled a little bit. Where I think Hudson has even maybe a bit of a step advantage on Quinn Hughes is, he's a great learner, and he has an ability to adapt, right? He adapts to the situation, and he's able to figure out how to overcome challenges that other teams put in front of him. So, I think if they start to take runs at him and start to try and pressure him behind, his own goal line and get in on the forecheck, dump and chase, that kind of thing, I think, he'll figure out a way to adapt to that. And, it might even turn out to be a situation where he can even use that to his advantage, right? If he can, if they're going to send 1 or 2 guys in to put pressure on him, and he can turn the puck around quickly or skate through that pressure or past that pressure, then, I think that, could certainly work to the Canadiens' advantage, and that it gives them, an opportunity to break out and to start, the offensive play, going the other direction. So do I have doubts? Not especially, because I've really learned at this stage, Mark, not to doubt anything about Lane Hudson, right? He's, if you've doubted him about anything so far, you've come out on the wrong end of the stick pretty much every single time so far in his career, right? Anytime people have doubted him, he's proven people wrong. So, yeah. Savard or Jack-Eye, you're going to see Savard, and you'll see Savard probably for the entire series. If Jack-Eye comes into the lineup, I suspect it will be to replace Struble or somebody who, God forbid, gets injured. Savard will be in the lineup, 1, because of what he brings, and 2, because, he's announced his retirement and that this will be his last hurrah in the NHL. And so I think the Canadiens will certainly, unless it becomes, absolutely painfully necessary, for him to come out, I don't think you're going to see him come out. So every Habs prospect is the next Gretzky. I don't see it that way, user 213. Do you see it that way? I don't see it that way. I don't think there's very many Wayne Gretzkys out there. I don't think there's any Wayne Gretzkys out there. So I don't think that any of the Canadiens prospects are the next Wayne Gretzky. But the Canadiens have some good prospects coming through the pipeline. Some are closer to the NHL than others, and they're not all going to be superstars. They're not all going to succeed. Some will make it. Some won't make it. Some will make it that you don't expect to make it, and some won't make it who you do expect to make it. So, what's up, Montreal fan? Good to see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you guys are over on TikTok, you can pop over to YT. The channel on YT is called that. So open up your YT app and go there and come on and check us out. And we're trying to, you'll get the full experience of the show from over there. So, Washington's too big, too much depth, going to be fun. Well, they're not too big, RDP. They're not bigger than the Montreal Canadiens. Both of these teams are essentially the same size when it comes to average height and average weight. So that's a narrative that's going around, is that Washington's this big physical monster of a team. Statistically, they're not any bigger than Montreal. You could argue that maybe some of their players play bigger. But if you look at the average size, height-wise and weight-wise between Washington and Montreal, the teams are essentially, the same. I think one is 7th in the league and one is 9th as far as size goes. I think we can figure that out. NHL ranking by size. Elite Prospect has this. Team comparison, 2024-25. Certainly with Protas out, it doesn't hurt either for Montreal. So the average height, the Canadiens are this is very different than what I saw the other day. Average height, team select season, 24-25. What did I see here? Average height, Montreal Canadiens are, where are they? 27th at 6'1", and the Washington Capitals are 7th at 6'2". So they're about, on average, an inch and a half taller, or a centimeter and a half taller, less than an inch taller. As far as weight goes, they're a lot closer. So as far as weight is concerned, the average weight of Montreal Canadiens is 202 pounds, and the average weight of the Washington Capitals is 203 pounds. So there isn't a whole lot of difference as far as that's concerned. And so, I'm not really as concerned about the Capitals sort of taking over physically from the Canadiens in this series. How come Arbor isn't in the lineup? Arbor Jacki hasn't played for the last, 6 or 7 games, maybe a little bit more than that. He came out of the lineup when Caden Gooley returned. They had to take somebody out of the lineup, and he was the one who came out of the lineup. MTL Montreal fan has a question. He's excited, he or she is excited for tonight. Am I excited? Yeah, I'm excited. I think it's going to be a great game. It's going to be fun to watch. Montreal fan, and I'm certainly, I'm definitely looking forward to it. We've got about an hour and maybe an hour and a half, I guess, until game time. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm here. I hope you guys are excited. I'm here to answer your questions. If you're over there on TikTok, come on and join us on YT. Like I said, the channel's right there. If you have questions, you can come on over here. You can also see the graphics that we're posting over here. And that certainly will give you an opportunity to talk about the game, the series, all that stuff. My has Habs weight 204, Caps 201. I'm looking at elite prospects. I don't know, maybe there's different places. So I have the Canadiens at 202 pounds, 91.46 kg, and I have the Capitals at 203 pounds, 92.04 kg. That's according to Elite Prospects. Yes, it's playoff times, GGG. So let's have another look, guys, at the depth chart for the Capitals. So like I said, one of the interesting things that came out of my conversation with Greg Young, by the way, guys, I would invite you to check out that video. I posted it earlier today. It's up on my YT feed. You can check it out. I had a great conversation with Greg, who is a Washington Capitals podcaster, knows the Capitals backwards and forwards, and had some really interesting things to say about his team and what he sees going into this series. But one of the more interesting things that he said was the idea that McMichael, Dubois, and Wilson, to him, certainly as far as ice time goes, will probably see the most ice time of all of their lines. He also, mentioned the fact that he expects to see Ovechkin spend, a lot of his time on the power play and maybe be sheltered a little bit on 5-on-5 and not be on the ice as much on 5-on-5 as he had been sort of leading up to his record-breaking game a few weeks ago. He also mentioned that he thought that the certainly before Fehervari came out of the lineup, they would have sort of rotated their defensive pairings pretty evenly. It would have been a situation where there would only be a minute or so difference between their first pairing and their third pairing. We see Alexiev is stepping into Fehervari's spot on the third pairing with Trevor Van Riemsdyk, so that may change a little bit. Alexiev is a younger defenseman who doesn't have a ton of experience at the NHL level, and so he may not get quite the same level of ice time as some of the others would. So, but yeah, I thought that was interesting. His comments about that second line sort of driving their offense a little bit, and sort of being their shutdown line as well, and that he kind of expected that line to match up against the Canadiens' first line, right? The Suzuki, Caulfield, Slavkovsky line. He would expect McMichael, Dubois, and Wilson to be out there against that line more often than not, which I found interesting to say the least. He also seemed to think that the Capitals had a bit of an advantage when it came to their depth forwards, their bottom six. He thought that that group, Mangiapane, Eller, and Leonard, Duhaime, Dowd, and Radish. He kind of felt that was a spot where the Capitals had an advantage over Montreal. I kind of disagree with that. I think maybe he was kind of underestimating a little bit the impact that the Canadiens' bottom sixth can have when they're playing really well. Like I think that guys like Gallagher and Josh Anderson can really be difference makers in this series. And if they're playing their game, that Dvorak line with Gallagher and Josh Anderson can certainly, is going to make life really, really hard for a guy like Eller, Mangiapane, and Leonard. I think that could be tough. That could be tough for them. Unrelated, but who do you have for Dallas and Colorado? I think Colorado is going to win that, Mateo. Again, I prefer Colorado personally, but I also think they're the better team. I think Colorado's done a lot to improve their team heading into the playoffs. I see them as the favorite in the West, frankly. And, in addition to that, Dallas, I think, is kind of struggling a little bit with injuries, and, they haven't really played well coming into the end of the season. So I see that as being, I think that's a Colorado would be the favorite in that series for me anyway. Thank you for the follow, Lil Junior Habs. Jeff Gordon, brilliant. Yeah, I think the entire management team has done a great job. I think Hughes, Gordon, the scouting staff, the coaching staff, and everyone's doing a great job, right? Ken Hughes' great line is, they want everybody pulling in the same direction, and I think they've certainly accomplished that, and I think that's what's currently happening. Guys, if you're over on TikTok, it's much easier for me, and it's much better for you if you come over and join us over on YT. There's way more. You get to see the graphics. I've got the Capitals depth chart up on the screen right now. You'll be able to see that over here. You'll be able to see what we're talking about. It's a lot easier to ask your questions over here. I can post your questions on the screen and respond to them a lot more easily than I can if you're over on TikTok. So if you are inclined, I would certainly invite you to pop over to YT. The channel is right there. All you do is open up your YT app and go to Recliner Sports 4. Come on over, get in the comment section. Much better for everybody if you guys come over here. It would be great. Asim, our PP has to be the difference. Do you think any changes should happen? I think that the power play is going to be important. I don't know that it's going to be the be-all and end-all. I mean, if the power play is terrible, it's obviously going to be hard for the Canadiens to win. I don't know that I would make any personnel changes on the Canadiens power play. I think that's you got to be careful about that. What's up, Wesh? I think you got to be careful about that. You need to, if you start moving things around and moving personnel around, you can really, really throw your power play into disarray. I think, there's a lot to be said for just letting it work itself out and letting the players figure it out there. We've seen in the past with the Canadiens, when you tinker too much with the power play, you can really send it into a downhill spiral, and that things can really get kind of greasy if you start to do that. And I think that could be problematic if the Canadiens start doing that. So I don't see that. I don't personally. I don't think they'll make any changes, and I also don't think they should make any changes. I'm not being considerate. Okay, Sawyer, my apologies. Avalanche to win. I like the Avalanche. If I had to say who my favorite was to win the cup, I would probably put the Avalanche number one. We need Demidov on number one. I disagree with that completely, Sawyer. I don't agree with that for a number of reasons. One, you don't put a kid who's played 2 games in the NHL on your first power play. 2, you don't change your power play. You don't change the group that's been together for the better part of half the season. You don't change that at the last minute. I just don't think it. Power play is very much about chemistry, and it's about having a bunch of guys out there who knows where each other's going to be and all that and the rest. It's not to say that I don't think that Demidov's a good player. It's not that I don't think he can do it. I just don't think that it's a very wise idea. Plus, I think that it's really beneficial for the Canadiens, for any team, to have 2 strong power plays, right? You want to have 2 strong power play units. And if you look back at the Canadiens this year, the period in time when their power play was probably the strongest was early in the season, when they still had Lane Hutson on the second unit. And that was because they could put 2 strong power play units on the ice, and the other team couldn't focus all of their best penalty killers against 1 unit. So I think there's a benefit to having 2 strong power play units, and I think it's one of the reasons why I don't think it's as desperate a situation as a lot of people make it out to be, to get Demidov onto that first power play. Plus, I also think that the Slavkovsky hate, or the Slavkovsky criticism, I think is I think it's overblown. I don't think he's learning. He'll get better. Those guys have played well together. So, I mean, it's I think it's. I mean, if you listen to Sawyer, if you listen to Marty St. Louis, I think that's his philosophy as well. It was the philosophy that he employed with Lane Hutson. I think the idea is that if Demidov turns out to be the player that we all expect him to be, or all hope that he'll be, that he'll someday be on that first unit. But it's the same way it was with Hutson, right? He worked his way into that, and it wasn't something you just threw at him. You threw at him right away. I think Gouli should quarterback the second unit, says Asim. Yeah, again, I don't agree with the sentiment that Matheson is a liability. I mean, Matheson had 62 points last year. He obviously didn't do that this year. He sacrificed some of his offense for defense. I struggle a little bit with some of the decision making that Matheson makes on the power play. Sometimes he takes shots when I don't think it's the right time to take a shot, whether it's a shot that ends up getting blocked or a shot that's easily saved. I don't know that Gouli's ready for that role just yet. I mean, obviously Gouli's offensive game is is coming around a little bit, but I still don't think he's a a power play quarterback yet, in my opinion. He doesn't have to be better than Matheson, Asim. Again, I think the criticism of Mike Matheson, a lot of it's misplaced. Mike Matheson gets a bit of a bum rap, I think, because he plays so many minutes, and when he does make mistakes, and he does, I'm not going to deny that he doesn't make mistakes, but when he does make mistakes, they tend to be glaring ones, and fans often focus on the one or two bad things he does in the course of a game and ignore the 12 or 13 things that he does positively. And again, I'm not suggesting he doesn't have bad games. He certainly has had bad games. He's admitted as much himself. But for the most part, Mike Matheson has been an extraordinarily positive force for the Montreal Canadiens. There's a reason why he plays 25, 26, 27 minutes a game. He's a steady guy out there. He's a guy who plays on the power play and the penalty kill, which again might be a reason why, as you say, it might be an idea about getting him off of the second power play at some point, so that you can, if Gouli does become a guy who can play that role, then it'd be nice to sort of be able to diminish Matheson's ice time a little bit, because I think he does play a little bit too much. And it does affect him as far as fatigue and so on. So, he has a better shot than Matheson. Yeah, I mean, so does Arbor Jackeye, right? But again, getting your shot off and being the quarterback, I don't think that the Canadiens are not trying to create offense from the point with point shots, either on the power play or on 5-on-5. Rodney Redcliffe over on, oops, I didn't want to do that. Get that out of there. Over on the YT, Rodney Redcliffe has a question, and it's, hope Slavkovsky goes beast mode in the third season. Yeah. Slavkovsky is a guy who historically, his history is that, he has performed big in big situations, right? He was the MVP of the Olympics at the age of 18. Again, it wasn't an NHL Olympics, but that's a pretty big stage, and he played his best hockey on that stage. And so I think there's certainly a hope that the playoffs bring the best out of a guy like Slavkovsky. If you saw him interviewed, was it this morning or was it yesterday's interview? Either way, he's definitely keyed up and seems to be ready to go. So it should be interesting to see how he plays, right? His game is definitely suited for the playoffs. Big body, board battles, guy who, is willing to battle along the boards and uses, again, when we talk about Slavkovsky being physical, it's not about him out there laying out guys. He's not going to be that guy, and he doesn't need to be that guy. But he needs to use his body to create space and to win battles along the boards and, be the guy who, when Suzuki or Caulfield throw the puck behind the net, they know he can go back there and he can get it. He can, get in front of the net, right? And win that battle to get space in front of the net and screen the goalie and get in, a place for a rebound, all that stuff that, you want to see from a power forward style guy, right? A big forward who does all of those things, right? So he definitely has the frame and the physicality and the body and everything for the playoffs. Now it's just a matter of seeing whether the head can adjust and can be there as well. So Claudio says, "What are you expecting from Demidov in these playoffs?" I don't know, Claudio. I mean, at the end of the day, in a lot of ways, what you get from Demidov will just be bonus, right? The Canadiens got there into the playoffs essentially without him, and now you're adding a guy onto to your second line who certainly has the capacity we've seen to be productive and to have an impact. He's 19 years old, so again, putting expectations on him, I think is probably pretty tough. It's going to be it's difficult to expect too much from him. I mean, that's not to say that we don't think he can do much, but we would expect something from him, but I don't think you can rightfully say, oh, he should have this many goals, or he should have, this many assists, or that type of thing. I think it's a matter of let's wait and see, because it's tough. Like he's a kid, right? And 2 weeks ago he didn't really think he would be leaving Russia. He would have thought that he was going to be in Russia playing in the MHL, and that his opportunity to to come to North America was not really wasn't really an option. And so I'm not going to say that you don't expect anything from him, but I mean, I think that you don't put too much expectation either. Like you take what you get, and it's going to be fun to watch him. I think if you're asking me what my expectations is, I think my expectations is that he's going to be fun to watch, if I can say that. So somebody asked what's the lineup for the Habs. So here are the lines from their practice, and this is what I would expect you'll see going into the game tonight. You've got Caulfield, Suzuki, and Slavkovsky, evidently. Anderson, Dvorak, and Gallagher. I mean, they have them listed as the second line. I technically view that as the third line, I suppose. Laine, Newhook, and Demidov, which is technically, I would say, the second line, but it doesn't really matter, I suppose. And then you've got Evans with Heineman and Armia as your fourth line. Matheson, Carrier, Gouli, Hudson, and Struble, Savard, and then Montembeault will be in the goal. I think that's pretty obvious as well. So, I mean, again, getting back to Demidov, I think, it's going to be fun to watch him. It's going to be fun to see what he can do. And I'm excited for that. Claudio, do I trust Demidov, or do I have trust in Montembeault? Yeah, absolutely. I think that, again, Montreal Canadiens fans are, have a hard time with Demidov, or sorry, Demidov. I keep trying to say Demidov. I got Demidov on the brain, which I guess isn't a bad thing. Montembeault's a very good goalie. This idea that he's not is just, it's misplaced. He's not an MVP goalie. He's not going to be a Vezina goalie, unless, he really improves greatly. But, he's a goalie who makes the right saves at the right time. He's got a very strong goal saved above expected as far as, the NHL is concerned. I think he finished the season in third or fourth in the entire league. He's been playing really, really well down the stretch, as has Dobesh. So I think the Canadiens are in pretty good shape goaltending-wise, and I think that you could certainly make a very strong argument that heading into these playoffs, the Canadiens probably have an advantage over the Capitals when it comes to goaltending. Listen, guys, if you're over, I can't get all of the questions over on TikTok. I'm going to try my best, but your best bet if you want to ask questions is to go here on YT and open up your YT app. Go to this channel right here and come on over here. And you can see the graphics, and you can ask questions over here. It's hard for me to go back and forth, and I certainly will miss questions. But if you come over here, I'll certainly be a lot easier for me to answer your questions. Aussi, si vous avez des questions en français, c'est une émission bilingue ici, alors vous pouvez demander vos questions en français. On va faire notre mieux pour vous répondre en français. Alors, si vous voulez nous rejoindre à YT, vous pouvez venir ici. Solar Fox, I think Lindgren goes tonight. I believe it's going to be Logan. Why do I always forget his last name? Why do I always forget Logan Thompson? God damn. I think you're going to see Logan Thompson tonight. I'm a Wings fan, but I'll definitely root for Marty St. Louis. That's great, Brad. Appreciate it. I don't know if it's confirmed 100% Solar Fox, but I believe it's going to be Logan Thompson. I can confirm it here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to be Logan Thompson. Again, I don't know that it's 100% confirmed, but my understanding is that it will be. pop on over here, guys. Come on over to YT so that I can answer your question. If you want to see the lines, Jeremy, you got to come over here to YT, man. I've got the graphic up. You can have a look at the graphic over here, and you'll see what the lineup for the Canadiens is. You can certainly do that. I think Kapanen, Heineman, and Demidov would be a very interesting. I think you've got to try Demidov with Laine and Newhook. I don't. Again, I don't think you want to mess with. Heineman has had his best hockey this year, playing on a line with Evans and Armia. I just think that that's your best option. You don't mess around with your lines too much, and the potential for massive offensive production with Demidov and Laine. Again, it's not a guarantee, it's not a sure thing, but the potential of that, if it works out, if it clicks, if it works, is certainly something that you have to try. I think you're as a coach, I think you have an obligation to try that and see if you can catch that that lightning in a bottle, if you want to put it that way. Brody Young. I have no issue with the Habs, though. Okay. Oilers or Kings? I think the Kings are going to take it KC Pro, to be honest with you. I'm also on Twitch. I'm on Twitch and I'm on YT, Jeremy. But your best bet is to join the show on YT. That is where you're going to get the best bang for your buck. It's where you're going to see the graphics, and it's where you're going to get the best experience for the show. So like I said, the YT channel is right there. Open up your YT and go to Recliner Sports 4 and come on over. Claudio S., how many years until Fowler is leading the Habs in goal? We'll see, Claudio. We'll see. Goaltenders, typically take some time to develop. Obviously, there's exceptions to every rule, and some players break the mold. I mean, Lane Hutson's a perfect example, right? Defensemen in the NHL don't typically excel at the age of 20. You don't typically, jump into the NHL and, have an impact right off the bat as a defenseman. Forwards can do it sometimes, but it's really rare for a defenseman, and it's even more rare for a goalie. But, if you look at Lane Hutson, right, rookie defenseman in the NHL, there isn't another rookie defenseman in the NHL who played 50 games this year, let alone had 50 points, right? I think the highest number of points by the second-ranked rookie defenseman in the NHL was something like 20, right? Like Caulfield beat the second-rated defenseman by like 60 or by like 45 points, right? So Lane Hutson, example of one of those guys who sort of broke the mold a little bit. You don't see defensemen do that in the NHL, which is again another reason why I think it's another argument for him to be the rookie of the year, because he's doing something that that doesn't happen very often, right? You don't see 20-year-olds step into the NHL and have an impact. That's a very rare thing to have happen. Just like you don't see goaltenders. Dustin Wolf is 24, right? Because he wasn't a guy who was going to step into the NHL at 19 or 20, and goalies don't do that. It just never doesn't happen with goalies, and it's very rare that defensemen do it. So as far as when I see Fowler leading the Habs, again, he's got a lot of developing to do. He just made the move from the NCAA to the American Hockey League. He certainly hasn't looked out of place so far, at the American Hockey League level. But I think it's a long road, right, for goaltenders. He'll play, certainly all of next year in the American Hockey League, I would expect, and then then we'll see after that. My sense is that it's probably, I don't want to say definitely 2 years in the American Hockey League, but, I would be surprised if it's less than that. I think, there's no rush. Montembeault is fine. Dobesh is fine. They've got goaltenders who can carry the load and hold the fort until he comes along. And I don't think there's any benefit in rushing him, right? The Canadiens rushed Caden Primo, and it doesn't appear to have been very successful. It hasn't worked out certainly for Primo. So another question from Claudio. Who do you think makes the Stanley Cup Finals this year? My picks, again, it's pure speculation. I'm not a big predictor. I don't believe in predicting because, realistically, it's just a guess. And anybody who tells you that they have some sort of additional knowledge or ability to predict hockey, I think they're only kidding themselves. But I mean, if I had to pick, I would say a Colorado Tampa Bay final. That would be my guess. DXTMG, what's my prediction on the Habs Cap series? I don't really have one. I mean, I think that the Canadiens are certainly capable of winning this series. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. I think it's a much closer series than a 1-8 would lead you to believe. But I think, again, it comes down to whether the Canadiens, bring the team that, played coming out of the Christmas break and the Four Nations break, and not the one that sort of struggled, going into the Four Nations break and kind of, struggled a little bit even, in the last 3 or 4 games of the regular season. So, I think it's, it depends on what Montreal Canadiens team shows up. But I think that, the Capitals are very beatable for a number 1 seed. And the Canadiens, I think, are pretty unpredictable as a number 8 seed. I think that if you try and assess the Montreal Canadiens by looking at their entire season, I think you can kind of mislead yourself a little bit, because they've definitely, they're definitely been a different team since Christmas than they were in the first half of the season. So, if you take into account the first half of the season, the stats can, maybe be skewed a little bit if you're trying to determine what kind of team they are. Wesh, players like Hudson don't come often, special generational player. Absolutely, right? And that's why I say, for Jacob Fowler to sort of break that mold where, like I said, you don't see goaltenders who just step into the NHL without playing, a fair amount of time in the minor leagues. It's a very rare thing. And what Lane Hudson did this year is a very rare thing as well. And you can't expect Jacob Fowler to do that, just like you couldn't expect Lane Hudson to do it, right? A lot of people said at the beginning of the year, Lane Hudson's just going to, you can't expect that. You hope for it, and it's awesome when it happens. But, you can't put expectations like that, just like you can't put expectations on Demidov. Do we hope Demidov, just takes off like a rocket like Lane Hudson did and doesn't really have too many growing pains? Yeah, we all hope for that. But again, that's not a reasonable expectation, right? You have to expect that guys will take, at least a certain amount of time to grow into their roles and into their position and into, becoming the type of player that they'll eventually be in the NHL. The longer the series goes, the better for the Habs. They're young. Yeah, yes and no, Earth. I think I agree with that too. I mean, the youth is obvious, but the Canadiens are also a team that, when they're confident and when they're playing well, they can be hard to handle. And so if they can get on a roll, they can win some games. But again, how long can they hold that role, right? Like if they do get confident where they're playing their best hockey, they have shown in the past that, sometimes the stamina and their ability to maintain that confidence runs out a little bit, right? We saw the streak after the Christmas break, that lasted about 3 weeks, where they were beating everybody, right? They beat, both Florida teams. They beat Colorado. They beat Las Vegas, on the road, didn't matter. They were playing their best hockey of the year. But eventually, not so much the physical fatigue as much as I think it is the mental fatigue kind of eventually caught up to them. So if you're over on TikTok, guys, join us on YT. I can't get to all your questions over there on TikTok. I'm trying my best. But certainly if you want to ask your questions and you want me to be able to answer them for sure, come on over to YT. That's the channel, Recliner Sports 4. You can ask your questions over here. If you are over here, hit that thumbs up button, guys. If you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button down below. Hit that thumbs up button, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. We're going to stay on here for about another 20 minutes or so, and then I'm going to shut down. I will take a bit of a break, and then I'm going to watch the game, and then I'll be back on after the game with Habs After Dark doing our regular programming that we typically do after a game. I wanted to go live here before the game just to give you guys a chance to chat and see what you guys are feeling. So fire away. Let me hear it, guys. I don't want to talk the whole time. I want you guys to sort of fire some questions at me and get the conversation going a little bit. Anderson will be hungry tonight. I think so, Joey. I expect big things out of Anderson and Gallagher tonight. Those are guys who've been there before, and they're guys who, they play, a quote-unquote playoff style of hockey. Calls. I don't know what you mean by calls. Paru. Caps money line. I'm not into the gambling side of it too much. Paru. Guys, if you want to check out another thing too, I mentioned it earlier in the show, but I posted a video earlier. I did an interview with Greg Young of Japers Rink podcast, or Japers Rink Radio. He's a Washington Capitals podcaster, expert on the Washington Capitals, and we had a chat for about an hour about the Capitals. And if you watch that, you'll get a nice insight into the Capitals, and what they're going to bring to this series and what you can expect from them. Certainly what he expects from them. And it's a really great chat we had. And he knows his stuff, and he was able to provide some really interesting insights into, the roster construction, the deployment of the players that we can expect from Spencer Carberry. As I mentioned earlier, the idea that, that Strome Ovechkin pairing duo might not get as much ice time as you would expect, and certainly with Protas out of the lineup and Beauvillier replacing him, you might see them get significantly less ice time 5-on-5, and that the second line, the so-called second line of McMichael, Dubois, and Wilson will get a fair share, or a lion's share of the ice time, especially 5-on-5. So I would certainly invite you to go check that video out. Like I said, it's a little over an hour long. It's a great chat, and it's a great source of information with respect to what you can expect from the other side heading into the series. And I think it's to everybody's benefit to check those kinds of things out, because it's nice to get an idea of what the other team is trying to do when they're playing you. So when you watch the game, to me, it makes it more interesting, and you certainly get a better feel for the game, and you also, I think it gives you an opportunity to be a little bit more objective and sort of knowledgeable about what's going on in the game as well. I don't like the trash talking of Ovechkin. Don't poke the bear. There's been no trash talking of Ovechkin. Born to be a Hab. If you're referring to the comments made by Patrick Laine, it was a stupid question by the reporter, and Patrick Laine answered that question exactly the way he should have. And frankly, I think that Alex Ovechkin would have answered the question the exact same way. If you're asking a guy the day or 2 days before a playoff series, whether he's excited about one of his opponents, and you don't get an answer like, I don't care, I don't give a shit, then you're not getting the right answer. The right answer is exactly what Laine said. It wasn't trash talking. He wasn't insulting Alex Ovechkin. What he was basically saying is, I'm about to play in the playoffs, and I'm not really that concerned about, the other team, let alone any individual player on the other team. And I'm not going into the series, starstruck or with a boner because, I'm going to play against Alex Ovechkin. Like, that's the last thing on my mind. I'm worried about, preparing myself and, being a part of this team heading into the playoffs, more than I'm, worried about, like I said, going in there excited to see Alex. Like, who cares whether it's Alex Ovechkin or Wayne Gretzky or Bobby Orr? You're going there, you're trying to beat them. Doesn't matter who's on the other side, and you're not going in there starstruck over, some guy on the other team, even if he is the guy who just broke the all-time scoring record. So I don't really see that as quote unquote trash talking, and I don't see. I don't think that Ovechkin would perceive it that way either. I really don't. Thanks for the follow, Habs fan. Like I said, guys, if you're over on TikTok, come on over to YT, Recliner Sports 4. Open your YT app, go to that channel, come on over and join us here. Get on the show. If you're over here on YT already, hit that thumbs up, hit the subscription button or the subscribe button. We would love to have you part of the family, part of our group, and that would be a good time. Wesh, Ovi's going to score. We just need to limit his scoring. You know what? I agree with that to an extent, Wesh. But again, if you look at the Canadiens' record against some of the better and best offensive players in the league this year, they've done a pretty good job of shutting them down. The Canadiens have played very well against the Edmonton Oilers. They shut the Oilers out earlier in the season. They lost in overtime recently, but were able to shut down both Draisaitl and Connor McDavid in that game. They were able to shut down Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar. They've done a pretty good job of shutting down the Florida Panthers, Barkov, and so on. So again, I do agree with the concept of, just sort of trying to limit and containing Alex Ovechkin. But at the same time, they've shown a capacity to shut down some of the best players in the league with their defensive game. Obviously it depends on, which group shows up but Mike Matheson, even though everybody seems to, have it out for him a little bit, Mike Matheson has been a huge player in that way, right? He's played his best hockey this year against the best offensive opposition. And he's really done a good job of shutting those types of guys down. Also, the first line has been able to shut those guys down. So yeah, I think it's I agree with you. It's hard to suggest that he's not going to get any goals. But at the same time, I think the Canadiens certainly have shown they have an ability to do that. I think they've shown that. Yes. Come on over, guys. Pop over to our YT channel. I'm not going to be able to answer all of the questions on TikTok. I do appreciate it. Feel free to ask your question over there if you don't really want to come over to YT or for whatever reason you're not able to. Yeah, we certainly would love for you to join us over on YT and help us grow the channel. We're going to be live here for about another 10 minutes or so, and then we're going to take a bit of a break, and then I'm going to watch the game, and then we will go live again once the game is over. We'll do Habs After Dark. Carrier is a pretty good shutdown defenseman. Yeah, Carrier's played well. I think Gouli has a role to play there as well. Lane Hutson's defensive game has been pretty special of late. So, again, I think, it's going to be a bit of a team effort. I think the forwards will have to get involved as well. I mean, we've seen, the Suzuki, Caulfield, Slavkovsky line is pretty solid defensively when it wants to be. And certainly, the third and fourth line have the ability, the forechecking of guys like Armia and Josh Anderson on the third and fourth line can be pretty overwhelming as well. So I think, if they're going to limit and restrict Ovechkin as much as they want and need to, I think that all of those guys will have a role to play. How do I feel of Lane Hutson? I think you mean. I think Lane Hutson's had about as good a year as you could possibly expect from a rookie defenseman. I think he's been more than anybody could have expected. His offensive game, his production is on a historical level, or has been on a historical level. His defensive game has continually improved. His game period has continually improved. He's one of those kids who appears to have a really big hockey brain, not just on the ice, but off the ice. He's able to adapt and change his game to respond to the challenges that are put in front of him. No problem, Wesh. It's great to have you. I appreciate you being here and your comments. He's a special player. Obviously he's never been in the playoffs before, and we'll see how that pans out tonight and over the next few games. But Lane Hutson has been doubted at every step of his development, right? He wasn't big enough to play, at the USNDDP. Then, everyone thought he was going to be too small, and that his production would come down once he, played in the NCAA. And then, when he, left the NCAA and joined the Canadiens, he was going to be too small, to play in the NHL. Maybe he could be a power play specialist and this, that, and the other thing. And, he's proved everybody wrong at every stage. So, I think that if you doubt Lane Hutson and what he's capable of accomplishing, I think you do it at your own peril. Again, I may be biased, but at the same time, history tells me that, there hasn't yet been a challenge that Lane Hutson hasn't been able to rise to. And I don't see any reason to think that, this is that challenge, that this is all of a sudden the spot where, all of a sudden he can't handle it anymore, right? He's handled every other hurdle and, every other stage of his development. I don't see any reason to believe that this will be the one where he can't. So Caps are winning the series. Bobby, how come? Bobby, tell me why. What's the key to victory for the Washington Capitals? All right, Habs fan, thanks for coming. If you're over on TikTok, guys, the YT channel is right here, Recliner Sports 4. We're doing a show live right now. We're going to be live for another 10 minutes or so. Come on over, join the channel, open your YT app, go to Recliner Sports 4. Si vous avez des questions en français, c'est une émission bilingue ici, alors vous pouvez demander vos questions en français et en anglais. If you want to ask your question in French or English, feel free to fire away. But yes, come on over to YT. It's a lot easier, guys. I'm not going to be able to get to all the questions on TikTok, but if you do come over to YT, it's a lot easier for me to respond to the questions. It's also going to be a greater experience for you. You get to see the graphics and all of the other stuff that goes along with the show. We had the, we'll put up the lineup for the Canadiens, the lineup for the Capitals. We had a good chat this morning with Greg Young of Japers Rink Radio, a Washington Capitals podcast. He gave us some pretty good insight on the roster and the deployment that we can expect from the Capitals. Also gave his opinion. He doesn't believe that Alexei Protas will play in this series. He thinks it's not likely for them to activate him. That the injury he's suffering from, he's still a ways off. He hasn't really practiced with the team yet. He skated alone a couple times, looked pretty ginger in doing so, and he doesn't seem to believe that Protas will be back. Fehervari, another injury concern for the Capitals, hasn't really been on the ice since injuring himself about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago against the New York Islanders. I don't know if it's that long ago, more like a week and a half ago, I think, against the Islanders. And that injury is sort of, nobody really knows what happened. It looked like he turned his ankle a little bit, but according to Greg, there might be something a little bit more going on there than that. And so, he's not likely to be back anytime soon. Certainly he hasn't skated in a while, so you wouldn't expect, a quick return to the lineup for him. So I'm nervous too. Well, I'm not nervous, Hayden. I think it's going to be fun, right? At the end of the day, I think as Habs fans, we can all look at this as, a bit of a cherry on top of the Sunday. I think they've accomplished all their goals and more this year by making the playoffs. And, obviously, we hope they win, and it's going to be disappointing if they don't. But, overall, this season has been a success. So in that sense, I'm not really nervous as much as I'm, excited. And I think it's going to be fun to get to watch this team play at least 4 more games and see how they respond to the playoffs. Ryan, welcome to the show, Ryan. I think you're new here, so welcome. I do appreciate you popping by, and I appreciate the question. Ryan asks, is Demidov's year one of his ELC burnt, or does he need a certain amount of games played this season? His ELC is burnt. So if you sign a player to an entry-level contract, they don't even have to play any games, right? They signed him to a 3-year contract with this year being the first year of that contract, and then so that means that, that contract will expire not next year, but the year after that. It's a 3-year entry-level contract, and very similar to what happened with Lane Hudson, right? Lane Hudson came up last year. They signed him to a 3-year entry-level contract. He just finished the 2nd year of that contract, and then his entry-level contract will expire at the end of next season, at which time he will become a restricted free agent, unless the Canadiens are able to extend him before that, which I expect them to try and do. They can extend him anytime, I believe, after June 1st. It's either June 1st or July 1st. I believe it's June 1st. So after June 1st, the Canadiens are free to extend Lane Hudson's RFA contract, much like they will be able to do the same with Demidov, not this summer coming, but the summer after that. Adam Troy, welcome to the show. Both you, Ryan, and Adam, thank you for being here, guys. I think you're new. Like I said, if you're not subscribed yet, the subscribe button is down below. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers. If you can help us do that, we're relatively new doing this. But the more subscribers we get, the more fun things we can do for you guys. We're trying to build a place where everybody can come and talk about the Canadiens, talk about hockey, and everybody's welcome. We're trying to have a place where we can have some nice, intelligent, civil conversations about the Canadiens. And if that's interesting to you, if that interests you, then like I said, hit that subscribe button down below. We're right around 340 subscribers. We need to get to 500. So if you want to be part of it, we're going to be we go live after every Montreal Canadiens game. We do a show called HABS After Dark. We do typically a weekly show called HABS Therapy Day right there. This is a special edition of that show. Normally we do the show on Wednesday evenings, but we're doing a little bit something special as a pregame lead up to tonight's first game of the series. I don't know that we'll do it before every playoff game, but we'll certainly consider it, and it might be something that we do more in the future. So Adam is new here, so welcome, Adam. Adam says Habs in 7. Yeah, we'll see. I'm just hoping for a fun and interesting series. Again, the Canadiens are playing with house money at this point a little bit. I think that one of the things that we're looking for as well is, this is an opportunity for them to gain playoff experience. The young players, getting an opportunity to feel what it's like to be in the playoffs and feel what the pressure, the excitement, the emotions, all of that of the playoffs, so that when it does come time where they are expected to do something in the playoffs, when they do expect to, win a series or two, or even, to become Stanley Cup contenders, that they're not, walking into the playoffs for the first time. So this will be a nice experience for them. The old saying is that, you have to lose before you can win. Again, I'm not going to be happy when they lose or if they get eliminated, but at the same time, I think it'll be a pretty positive season overall when we look back at the entirety of it all. Yes, I'm excited as well, NWO Fishing. If you're over on TikTok, come join us on YT. The YT channel is Recliner Sports 4. Come on over and watch us over here. Ryan Forwell, what do I think Kent and Gorton do in free agency this summer? I don't know. I think they'll. I mean, they're very big on doing their due diligence, and I think they're going to explore every opportunity that's out there. They're going to ask about any player that might or might not be available. I think they're going to know exactly who's available and who's not available, and what they're going to cost. I don't think they're going to be desperate to make a move. I don't think they're going to sort of feel like they have to make a move heading into next season. If the right deal comes along, I think they'll check it out. And if it makes sense to them, I think they'll do it. I don't expect that they'll sacrifice too much as far as the future is concerned, as far as the young players and the prospects. I don't think that you're going to see a trade where they give up a ton of youth in order to bring in another player. I don't think you're going to see them, trade for an older player. This talk about Sidney Crosby and all that stuff. I don't see that happening. I think if they do bring somebody in, it's going to be somebody who's under the age of 30. Maybe they bring somebody in who's a little bit older than that for maybe a year or two. But again, I don't think they're that concerned about the mix between veterans and young players on this team. I think they've got plenty of veteran leadership to go around. With your with Gallagher and with Josh Anderson and with Jake Evans and Mike Matheson and players like that. I think and guys like Suzuki obviously are stepping into leadership roles. Caulfield is no longer a young kid anymore. So I think they're I don't think they're desperate to bring in veterans. I also don't think they're as desperate for a quote unquote impact player the way a lot of people are making it out. I think they're like I said, if the right deal comes along, I think they'll certainly do what they can, and if it works, they'll do it. But at the same time, I don't think that they'll be it won't be the end of the world for them if they go into next year's training camp without bringing in a quote-unquote impact player, a second line center or anything like that. I don't see that. Adam Troy says, I don't think Washington is legit. Okay, what do you mean by that, Adam? Why do you say? I mean, I get the sentiment, but I'm interested to know why you think that. Or I'm not sure I would go as far as to say that I don't think they're legit. But like I said earlier, I don't think they're as invincible as you would expect from a number one seed, right? They're not, they've obviously struggled down the stretch. I think there will be a bit of a letdown now that the Ovechkin record is over and done with. I think they have overachieved this year. That's, if they continue to overachieve, then that's great. But, on paper, they're not as good a team as their record would indicate. I think they're very, very beatable. I think they're a team. Again, they don't get me wrong. They've had a fantastic season, and if all of their players, play in these playoffs the way they played all season long, then it's going to be a tough job for the Montreal Canadiens. But there's a lot of guys on that team who've played over their heads a little bit this year, and if they come back down to earth a little bit, then it might be a bit of a different story. So, I don't think it'll be easy, as Wesh says. I think it'll be a good series. I think the Canadiens have again, if the Canadiens show up and play the way they did coming out of the Four Nations break and out of the Christmas break, I think it's going to be pretty positive for the Canadiens. So I think that's going to be it, guys. I'm going to end the show there. It's 7:30 here in Nova Scotia, which means that the game is going to go here in a little over half an hour. I'm going to stop the show here now. We will be live after the game with Habs After Dark. Everybody's welcome. We would love for you to be there. We're going to talk about the game. We'll go over the scoreboard. We'll do the A team. All the things we normally do. We'll do that after the game tonight. We will go on the air probably around 10 minutes after the game's over. But for now, we're going to shut her down. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. On n'a pas eu l'opportunité de parler en français, mais on va revenir après le match pour Bleu, Blanc, Rouge, Nuit. On va parler à propos du match, à propos des Canadiens, à propos de la série, les séries. We're going to be live, guys, after the game. And like I said, if you're not yet subscribed, please do so. Hit that button down below. Hit the notification bell. That way you'll get a little note on your phone or on your iPad or wherever you're watching this. You'll get a little note that we've gone live. I only see 2 thumbs up there, guys. Hopefully we can do better than that. Let me know what you think of this, guys. If you enjoy doing the pregame review or the preview or whatever you want to call it. If you enjoy that, if you want me to keep doing it, let me know. That would be great. Also, like I said, I highly recommend you go check out the video with Greg Young that I posted this afternoon. A really great conversation we had and provides a lot of great information and insight about the Washington Capitals. And certainly heading into this game tonight and the rest of the series, if you do watch that video, you'll have a much better sense of what the Capitals are all about and what they're trying to do out there. And I think it'll certainly improve your watching experience of the series. So thank you so much, guys. For those of you over on TikTok, thank you as well. If you are watching on TikTok, I certainly invite you to pop over to our YT channel, hit that button there, Recliner Sports 4. Go to the channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, hit the thumbs up button, all that good stuff. The show is much better, and you get a much better experience if you watch it over on YT. It's a much better experience, and we would certainly love for all of you to join us over here. We're trying to build a place to have civil and intelligent conversations about hockey and about the Montreal Canadiens. And, we certainly, the more the merrier for us. And, the more people we have, the better. And, the better experience, I think, for all of us. The more conversation, the more interaction, all that stuff. So that's it for now, guys. Thanks so much. Big game coming up, about half an hour. I see the teams are all going on the ice for the warm-up. Enjoy the game tonight. Go Habs, go. I think it'll be a fun game to watch, and I look forward to it, and I hope you do as well. And I certainly look forward to seeing all of you after the game and having a chat there. Thank you, Wesh, Cosmo, Troy, Ryan, and the rest. Thank you Born to be a Hab, Claudio. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you for being here. And like I said, hit that thumbs up button, guys, if you're enjoying it. If you're watching in a replay, same applies. If you enjoy the show, give us a thumbs up. We'll see you later. Thanks so much, guys, and we'll check you out for Habs After Dark after the game right around, 11:30 my time. Peace out.
Pour un gars d'ici, être le directeur de général des Canadiens est une occasion d'une vie.
Enjoy the moment. You're in the NHL here.
Working for the Montreal Canadiens is a dream. La plus grande franchise dans la histoire du hockey.
If it was my last day on this planet, and you told me what would you like to do, we want to be in that building on a Saturday night.